What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. Now, dig this, man. This is a special episode. And again, I know I always say this is a special episode, but real talk, every episode is a special one. But this one is special because we in the moment with it. And we got my man, Eric the Counselor, aka Eric Capehart Sr., on the line with us today. Now, this brother's a husband and a father. He's a professional counselor who's passionate about helping Black males navigate successfully through life's greatest challenges. He's a Tennessee-based counselor, and I have to also be fully transparent. This is my personal therapist. This is my counselor. This is my guy. So when I have to unload and unpack, this is the brother that I personally am connecting with. So fellas and ladies listening to, because y'all like to tune in to what we're talking about, let's welcome my man, Eric Capehart. How you doing, brother?
What's up, man? It's good to be here. It's always good to be on somebody else's podcast. So I'm excited to be the one being interviewed this time. It's always good. And I'm glad you put that disclaimer out there. Not necessarily a disclaimer, but you said that I'm your counselor. You know, for those of you that might be freaking out, like, oh, you're not supposed to say that. It's up to you. When you're in counseling, it's up to you whether to share or not. Someone is counseling you. So you've done that. And so that I just want to put that out there for those that might be worried about it. But good, man. It's good to be here today. I'm excited about the conversation that we're going to have. It's an important conversation. And I think we are going to be the examples of it, especially you, because you're not only talking about it, you actually are in therapy. And so I think it's going to be good for people to see Black men talking about mental health and Black men who are actually involved in mental health. So I think it's going to be good.
Man, I appreciate that. I mean, and I think that's really good and that's awesome to say because, and I'm glad that you pointed that out because I think a lot of times when people think about therapy and counseling, it's like, I'm scared to talk to somebody because, man, they might say something or they might share this or they might go out and talk about me, or if they see me out in public, they're going to look at me all crazy. And I'm serious. I think there's a lot of stigma there. Yeah. But the thing is, I would also think about like your doctor outside. So like your physical doctor. So if you got some type of issue going on and you go see your doctor, you're not necessarily ashamed to go to your doctor and throw your legs in the air and say, look here, dude, what's going on here? Right? Because you're not worried about seeing him at the grocery store because, you know, you understand that. The same thing with your therapist and your counselor, you know, if you basically not literally throw your legs up, but if
we're not throwing legs up.
Yeah, we ain't throwing no legs up, man. But if you bear yourself, you know what I'm saying, from the standpoint of like your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, your issues, it's the same thing. It stays there. And that's a really good place to, it's a good platform or good environment to have. And I think everybody needs that.
Oh, absolutely, man. No doubt about it.
So before we get into the story, man, and get into your journey, I always like to have the brothers give shout outs because who are we without our village, without our support system, you know, those individuals who are the wind beneath our wings, you know, go ahead and give a shout out before we jump into your story, man.
I like this. So I'm gonna give a shout out to my homeboys, my brother, BJ, my man, my best friend, Ron Johnson. Give a shout out to my family, give a shout out to all my clients, all of my people who listen to the show. I love y'all, man. And I'm loving this opportunity to give a shout out. You might make me do this on my show.
Dude, I'm gonna check this out. Cause you know, you think about it, man, like especially Black folks, man, it's all about that connection. You know, I was listening to an episode, it was an interview, and it was with Charlie Murphy, you know, Eddie Murphy's brother. And Charlie Murphy was talking about how, you know, as he started off as a comedian, he said with white audiences, he was killing it. But then he would go in front of Black audiences and it just wasn't grooving. And he said, I think it was either Martin Lawrence or somebody was backstage with him. And Martin said, so tell me about what you're talking about, what you're doing. I think it was Martin. It might be somebody else. And Charlie kind of gave his routine and all of that. And then whoever the comedian was, I think it was Martin, but it might have been somebody else, said, with Black folks, you got to warm us up. You got to give shout outs. You got to come out there and say, fellas, y'all doing good. And ladies, y'all doing this. Right. You got to warm the crowd up. He said the non-Black audiences wanted you to come and just get straight to the jokes. Whereas the Black audiences wanted you to warm them up. And he said, literally, I did that on my next show and I was killing it ever since. And so
I like that.
Yeah, it is. And so when you think about it, like culturally, this is Black Fathers Now. I mean, again, a lot of people from all backgrounds listen, but I'm speaking to brothers. And so to that point, we have to make it a point to realize that our village is extremely important. And who are we without our village?
Man, that's a good move right there, man. I like it.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Well,
might
you can
have to
take
copy
it.
that, man.
Yo, go and take it, man. Look, I got it from somebody else. Or look, you get it from me.
Yeah, I love it. That's cool, man. I respect that.
Dig that, man. Dig that. And so now let's jump into your story, man, your origin story. And, really just kind of talk to us a little bit about your background growing up and some experiences, like what led you into counseling and therapy as a professional?
Yeah. I was sitting with one of my mentees yesterday at my house, and he was asking me the same question. And I'm going to give an answer, but then go to the beginning and bring us back to today. Because to be honest with you, Mike D, counseling as a profession chose me. And the reason we were even talking about my profession was he's 27, 28. He's a pro boxer, but he's ready to move. He's coming to the end of his boxing career, and he's wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so we were having a conversation about what do you do if you could do it without worrying about getting paid. And so we were going through these different things that he likes to do, which is totally outside of boxing and competing or anything. It's actually farming. And I was like, man, if you're passionate about it, you can do it. And then he asked me, well, how'd you become a counselor? I was like, well, really, it chose me. And so my story, I'm a kid from Nashville. I grew up in a single mother home. I actually, before my mom was actually single, I was adopted by my father-in-law, so he was in the military. So I've lived around the world, to be honest. I've lived in Germany for 7 years. I've lived in California, Florida, all around. And so that's, if you're a military brat, you know what that lifestyle is like. Never in one place a long time. You don't have really a lot of friends from childhood. And all that time, I was the only male of my four siblings. So my mom had me and four sisters. And so I'm always kind of like standing alone, right? And there was one thing I always wanted, Mike D, was to have brothers so that I could have like that male energy around me, right? And so I go through high school. I ended up, I was never in a gang, but I had my crew, and we, that was our crew. We used to walk around. We had guns. We were selling. We were both selling weed, and just being mischievous. We weren't trying to cause no harm or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just what we did, right, as a means to survive and to have money and to do things because of the conditions we grew up in. And I wasn't like dirt poor. My mom eventually divorced a guy that was in the military, so it was just her and those 5 kids, which I was one of them. But I was in the streets a little bit, right? I knew how far to push. So fast forward just a tad, I ended up getting expelled from high school in 11th grade.
Wow.
So I spent the whole year out of high school. I went to multiple different schools, ended up getting expelled out of the last school that I went to right before it was time for me to go back to the public high school that I eventually graduated from on time. And so that's a part of that journey. Went to college, did everything in college, man. Really, really good time in college. And after college is when the entrepreneurial spirit kicked in for me. I started a nonprofit organization, which was a mentorship organization for black males. And our whole purpose was to reduce the likelihood that they would ever come into contact with juvenile court for any reason. And some of those reasons were even beyond what we could help them with. But we were mostly helping with, behavioral issues in school, getting their grades up, those types of things. And we did that for 11 years. And so in the midst of me doing that, Mike D, I realized that, I spent a lot of time at my boys' homes, talking to their mothers, talking to their grandmothers, their dads, whoever was taking care of these boys. I spent a lot of time talking to those families in their homes. And I started to realize that, what's going on with him is not just him. He is a product of this whole system, the whole family. And I started to notice that there were some things kind of off that I couldn't, name what it was or identify what it was. But now as a therapist, I see that I was seeing mental illness rampant in the home. I was seeing high numbers of adverse childhood experiences, which lead to mental health conditions in young people. I saw all of that without really knowing what it was. But doing it for so long, that's when I started to realize, yeah, mentoring is great. I wrote a book about mentorship. I'll vouch for it forever. But it's only one part. Well, for me, I realized it was only one part of actually helping my boys. There was a deeper psychological and emotional aspect of their life that we were not able to help them with. And so I realized that years into it. And then after 11 years, I decided, you know what? I'm going to pause I'm actually going to, because we were doing group mentorship in schools. We were doing team, like we were partnering with youth football teams, and we had mentors on all the teams.
Wow.
We were doing all kinds of stuff, man. We had in-school programs, after-school programs, and team mentorship programs all over the city in Nashville. That's what we did. The 11th, at the end of the 10th year, going into the 11th year, I decided I'm going to go and get another master's degree and become a professional counselor with a vision to one day, which I'm doing it now. I'm living in the manifestation of a vision I had in 2014, which was to couple the two, the mental health aspect with the therapy. So I actually now have therapeutic mentoring that I do. The same thing I was doing basically, but I've added a few more skills and I added a little more therapeutic structure to the way that I do things. And so how did I become a counselor? I really think it's something that chose me. This field literally chose me because I had no interest in doing this at all. I never thought about being a professional counselor.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you what's powerful about this. And it kind of, and I believe everything in life happens for a reason. And if you're open, aware, and present enough, you can see all the connections. And so one of the things that you talked about was your experiences, dabbling in the streets, doing this, doing that. Literally was not about you becoming some kingpin. If you really look at the whole big picture, it's about giving you the context to connect with the boys that you're designed to mentor, connect, and empower going forward, which then opened the window to you seeing that it's much deeper than just giving them a playbook. We have to unpack some of these therapeutic issues. And I look at the connection now to my side of the coin, where about a year ago, I interviewed a brother who's actually a mentor of mine now. His name is Sean Dove, and he used to be the head of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Now it's called the Corporation for Black Male Achievement out of New York. And when I was interviewing him, we were talking. He's mentored and counseled leaders all over the world. And one of the things that he mentioned to me, he said, Mike, and this is what I tell to all my leaders. He said, if you don't have a therapist, a coach, and a mentor in the mix, you're going to struggle leading at the highest levels. And I was sitting there talking and I was listening. And usually when interviews, we're doing this for the audience, but I stopped him and I said, dude, you're talking to me. Like, I need that structure in my life, the mentor, the therapist, and the coach. And I'm a personal development coach. But what's interesting is I do sessions with people and work on performance and uncovering opportunities and looking at who they are and helping to unpack their greatness and figure out areas where they can shine and be the only one, not just the best of some of the other groups over here and all of that. When I'm doing that and I uncover things, one of the things that I find is there are situations in which my coaching session is leading them to the notion of recognizing they need therapy. And I understand there's a very distinct difference between the two. And I do not pawn myself off as a therapist or a counselor. I am a coach. And literally some of the feedback comes back to, look here, brother, I can help you with this and this, but you need a therapist to work on that. I can't do that. Right. I'm not trained with that. And so what you literally uncovered, say what, ma'am?
I was just saying, I'm really glad that you appreciate and respect your boundaries and what you can do. It was the same thing for me as a mentor. I knew that I couldn't help with the things that I was seeing, so I did something about it.
Yeah, and dude, and I think that's, and I'll tell you what's crazy about it is, and this is where, again, from an entrepreneurial business opportunistic perspective, some people say like, I can figure this out. I can go and grab and do this, but you're doing those that you're serving a disservice by not putting them in touch with individuals who are trained to do that. Now, again, if it's personal development, is, understanding who you are, your why, all of that, or mentoring, I'm one of the best in the world there. I can do that. But as it pertains to therapy and counseling and all of that, I'm like, are y'all in Tennessee? Okay, because I got a brother that y'all need to connect with. And his name is Eric Capar, AKA Eric the Counselor, because the brother's trained in that. And I think we have to understand our lanes and understand our zones and don't step out of that, because we do those that we serve a disservice by doing so.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely.
And so,
There's, in our community, we think, and I'm not knocking this.
yeah.
I'm not. We think barbers are the counselors, which barbers use. Barbers use one of the most powerful counseling tools, which is listening. Right. I mean, as a counselor, even when you're with me, I'm listening to you most of the time. Like, you're talking most of the time, I'm just listening and writing notes. And that's what barbers provide. But the thing that really sometimes takes the barber out of his lane is when the barber says, yeah, this is what I would do if I was you. That's where the line is drawn to, where that's not counseling. That is just having someone to listen to you and offer their opinion. Because in therapy, one of the things that I value the most is a person's autonomy, or their ability to live and decide for themselves, especially if they don't have like a severe mental illness, which I don't treat the severely mentally ill. I don't treat people with schizophrenia or major personality disorders. That's not my lane. But if a person like you lead the sessions, you can do what I'm not going to say, Mike D, this is what you need to do. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to help you discover all the options that you find available to yourself. I may introduce new options, things that you haven't seen, like the blind spots. Maybe I can look around the corner for some people, and I can throw that in there. But I'm not going to say this is what you need to do, because that's what I did, and that's where and black men. I mean, I'm not knocking barbers anywhere. I love barbers. Obviously, I haven't been to one in a while, but the barbershop is our place. Right. That's our space, man. That's the space where you can go and chill, kick back, and actually talk about your issues, the ones you want to share, and even hear other people's issues. Because you can sometimes the barbershop, I went to a shop for a long time, and even after I got cut, I was in the shop. There's like a whole conversation going on with everybody in the barbershop. It might not be just you and your barber there. Might not just be you and your barber. But I think it's important to know that if you're using a barber as a counselor per se, I would encourage you to get with a trained counselor, and you will see the difference, and you will learn to actually appreciate your barber more, because that barber can kind of stir some things up that you can actually process with a counselor. So I think it's a very important thing to know, that talking to a barber is cool. Talking to your homeboys and all that, that's great. But you got to come and get some unbiased feedback and experience mental health through the techniques that you will be introduced to by a counselor, a professional counselor.
And dude, check this out. When you were talking, I thought about track and field, and I thought about like the 4x1 and the Baton Pass, right?
Yeah.
And so, when you think about the 4x100, everybody runs their leg of the race, and then you pass the baton to somebody else. The person who runs the first leg doesn't run the first, and I know I'm faster than the one that runs the second. Like, I'm gonna keep running the second leg too. No, you pass it to the next one, because that's their time, right? That's their time, right? And I think when we look at it, if we're honest and we start to take a step back, exhale, and become present in the moment, and realize that, okay, it's dope to have my homeboys. It's dope to have the barber. It's dope to have, my mama and my cousin, my brothers, and it's dope to have all of these people. And as it pertains to my mental and emotional health and wellness, they serve a purpose, but it's not going to necessarily be the same purpose as this licensed clinical therapist who can really help you to unpack and get to those points that your mama can't necessarily help you get to. And so but these people are important, because to your point, and I love the analogy you gave, the barber stirs it up. But I think for a lot of us as Black men, we get stirred up, but then we just stir it up. And then it's like it's like if you making some sweet tea or something, you put the sugar in, you stir it up, but then you let it sit there, the sugar settles back down to the bottom again, right? So we stir it up, but then we don't go and do something with it, meaning we don't go and take it to the place to then get it right by someone who's really trained to help us get it right. We just stir it up, then it resettles until we go back to the barbershop again, and we stir it up again, then it settles. Or your homeboy stir it up.
Guess what, Mike? Like another great thing that works with Black men, and this is me talking to your audience. I know
Mm-hmm.
who listens to the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's called talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds basic, and it is basic, but you're just talking, just like what we're doing. But there's a therapeutic benefit in doing that with an unbiased professional, right? Even though you're in a barbershop, they're using talk therapy, or they're talking and they're listening, and that's cool, right? It's just everybody's just talking and saying what they need to say. But that is one of the most highly effective ways to help Black men. That's what I use with you.
Mm-hmm.
Talk therapy. We're just talking. You tell me what's going on. I'm listening for triggers. I'm listening for ways that I can help you mitigate those triggers. But essentially, we're just talking. I think, before I became a counselor, I think counseling is kind of a boring topic, like a boring field. Like, it just is. But that's why you need to have someone with energy and someone that can make you feel like, oh, I need to do that. Because counseling is a profession that was created by European white folks, and there was not anybody Black that I ever learned about on my process of becoming a counselor. So I don't want to say it's not for us, but I'll just say it wasn't created with us in mind. And even if I take it back further and say this, that it was once when Black people were, I'll say when enslaved Africans were introduced to the idea of mental health, it was used as another weapon against our people.
Ooh,
so
yes.
For an example, there was a disorder, I think it was known as niggeritis or something like that, niggeritis, and the whole thing was, if you wanted to be free, if you no longer wanted to be a slave, and you tried to escape, or even if you didn't try to escape, you would be labeled as having this mental health condition.
Wow, dude, can
Only
I say,
because you want to be free.
Dude, think about it.
Yeah.
That is freaking deep. And to me, when you start thinking about like the whole concept of genetic messaging getting passed down through generations, like, people talk about trauma goes down through generations and it's expressed in your genes and things of that sort. Then you have epigenetics, which again is the environmental factors which influence your gene expression. But when you're saying that, and you think about the history of mental health and how it was used as a weapon against Black people, but now we're in situations in which mental health therapy and counseling could help us to unlock and become free. There's still this block here that, this used to be a weapon. Now you're trying to tell me this is a tool, right? It's kind of like, I used to use this to harm. Now you're supposed to use this to build. It's just like, it's this break here. And so when people have that mental break, and that's the stuff that also verbally gets passed down through generations. You might have a parent or a grandparent that says, oh, you don't need to go talk to that person. No, you don't need that. You just need to pray and it'll be fine, type deal. And how do we break that mindset that mental health counseling or therapy is not a weapon, but it can be used as a tool?
Man, we break it by doing these types of things right here. The best way to break a cycle is to do something different. And so if you think about the cycle of grief or the cycle of anger, it's a cycle. It starts, it has its origin, and it has cycle. It's going in it's a cycle. That's why people are caught up in the cycle of anger. If you have an anger issue, it's because you're constantly in this cycle. And the only way to change the situation is to go a different direction, do something different to break the cycle. And so having Black men talk about mental health is working. Like having Black celebrities talk about mental health is definitely working. Having everyday people like us talk about mental health and being a part of it. And I'm a counselor and there's other Black counselors. This is all a part of breaking the stigma that Black people don't go to counseling. And it's the stigma. People are like, well, why do we think this? And some people have a negative attitude that we even have this stigma. And I'm like, well, hell, look at the history. Yes. If you ever want to know why a thing is the way it is, you look at the history of that thing. And that's the same thing we do in counseling. What you present with the problem, let's go back and look at what happened so that we can, identify what the problem is based on these symptoms. And so if we look at our society and we think about why do Black people don't not want to go to counseling, we'll go back to the history and see how we were kept in insane asylums against our own will. You know, we were diagnosed with there was a story I read about. I wish I had the actual citations for these stories, but I'll just share it anyway, just to show the power of it. There was a Black woman who was kept in an insane asylum for so long. The time that she was there, her family died off, her husband died off, her children died off. And then when someone finally literally like assessed her for real, the only issue she had was poverty. She didn't have any type of psychological disorder. She wasn't even suffering from the mood disorder, like the depression of losing her, and being locked in this facility. It was all because the woman was in poverty. That's why she was there. And so when I say that the reason we have these stigmas are valid reasons, and I like how you're saying that let's use what was once a tool or a weapon against us as a tool to empower us. That's exactly what we're doing with mental health, because we've normalized being mentally unstable. We've normalized so many behaviors that are not stable. They're pathological. They are pathological behaviors that are not helpful, but we've normalized it. And so when you have people that look like you, that is knowledgeable about the subject, then you have what is necessary is to be what's known as a culturally competent therapist. And you're not culturally competent just because you're part of the culture, but that does help you. Like, I need to know how to best reach a Black man in counseling. It's not just me showing up and being a Black man that's helping. Maybe that'll help them get through the door. But in the session, I need to know how to let my competency show up, to let that man know that, hey, I do understand what you're talking about, And you pointed it out earlier when you made the connection between my upbringing in the streets and how I'm using that to help people today. I call that the relatability factor. That's like my secret weapon in counseling, is I have this relatability factor that people, they don't think that I have for some reason. But when I start talking to you about it, you're like, oh, okay, he actually know what he's talking. Like, yeah, we speaking the lingo, but I'm also helping you in a therapeutic way. You're winning. You feel like, oh man, that is the perfect person to help me deal with the situation.
Dude,
so,
I'm gonna throw something in. This is awesome, but then it also leads to a challenge. So the awesome factor is the relatability, or the connection really goes back to like what we're talking about with the barbers. The reason that brothers share everything with their barber, because it's like, you might have been with their barber for the last 20 years, right? That's your, your dude. He understands you. He knows what you like, how you like it, what level he wants you cut. He knows all things about it. He knows all your relationships, your kids. He knows all of this stuff, right? Y'all have a relationship. You're comfortable with him. Right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you stop and you think about it. You'll sit in a chair and allow him to have a razor coming near your head. You're just like, dog, you trust that brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something there. You think about it, right? If you really put in context, it's the relatability factor. And when you talk about your relatability to brothers, that is like a no-brainer. When they see that, they're like, yo, I want this dude to help me walk through some of these issues. Now, here's the conundrum. There's not a lot of you around, and there's a lot of brothers that need counseling and therapy. How do we find that fix for that particular issue? Because again, if there was an Eric Capehart and, if there's 20, 30, 40 of you in every city in America, every brother would have access. But the reality is that's not the case. And when we look for you, you're like a needle in a haystack compared to the overwhelming majority of those that are out there. What's the fix there?
Yeah, man, I'll just take the moment to say that we do exist. There are many Black male therapists, not in comparison to, our white counterparts, or not even in comparison to our female counterparts. And I think the reason it's hard to find a lot of us is that we're not trained in promoting and marketing ourselves. That's not a part of becoming a counselor. But for me, as a businessman, before I became a counselor, I understand marketing. I have an MBA. I understand the importance of PR and really utilizing social media. But I think in Nashville, we had a list that my company came up with. There's about 28 Black male counselors, and that's between counselors up to psychologists, psychiatrists,
Mm-hmm.
and all in between. You know, there's a array of us here, but the problem that you bring up is a problem. And to be totally candid, I don't know how to solve that problem. I mean, it's like we can't make more of us, you know, well, we can make more of us. And then I guess maybe thinking about the problem, if I think about it in the long game, like long term, is that we would just recruit more young Black men to want to be counselors, you know, go into the high schools, and me show up and these guys show up and just talk about being counselors. I guarantee you those boys have an interest in it. I guarantee you, because I mean, I did it for many years. I know those guys have interest in learning about sociology and psychology. I know that they do. Maybe that's a way to reduce the problem. You can do, and sometimes you may not always need to have a one-on-one situation. So if you are thinking like, you know what, I would like to establish a relationship with the counselor. Maybe I don't need to do one-on-one, or I'm not ready for that. Maybe you can find a counselor that's doing group work. I do group anger management classes. You know, it's controlled. Everybody's there for the same reason, to learn how to control their anger better. And so after the class is over, everybody has had a therapeutic session together and learned how to manage anger. So you can take advantage of group things. But I mean, it is a problem that there are, like you're saying, there is a relatively small amount of Black male counselors in the city that I'm in, which is not far from you. I know a couple up there in Knoxville. You know, we do exist, but then again, I mean, the problem is multi-layered, Mike. So let me throw this out there. Most of the Black therapists are fully booked Black males. Especially if they accept insurance.
And that's exact. And see, that's kind of where I was going as well. So, I mean, we got the numbers are not humongous or not robust. You got certain pockets here or there where there are more Black male therapists than not. But then it comes to the notion of then the availability, right? It's just like, you know, like I was talking to somebody recently and they were like, and I threw out some names and they were just like, dang, every last one of them is booked. No openings, no availability. But that then goes back to the whole notion of supply and demand. The supply is not enough to meet the demand that's out there.
And it's growing. The demand is growing. The more you see celebrities and the more these types of podcasts and my show and all this stuff, the more we put this into the culture, the more people are going to want to have therapy. And so maybe you're giving me an idea to maybe we should just go on I was literally talking to our mayor's office, not the mayor, but there's a team in our mayor's office in the public safety. And they invited counselors in to talk about, from our perspective, how we could help improve public safety. And one of the things I actually said was, we got to play the long game, and we actually have to recruit Black males to come into this field. And so there's an opportunity right there that maybe something I need to take a step further with your help, maybe, and figure out a way to recruit more Black men into the field. I thought about even, you know, here's another cool idea where barbers could actually be trained to be mental health. You're not like a counselor.
Like an advocate type deal or something.
Yeah, there's a specific program that's not coming to my mind right now, but they can learn some tools to where they could, I mean, hell, they'd be even better, you know, at being barbers / counselors. But I thought about going and just recruiting barbers to go take them and put them through these programs so that they could be like the front line for people to get into the field for real. Because I mean, shit. I mean, I don't know. I'm cussing on your show, man.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You good.
You know, again,
we're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to talk more, dude. Because I really think, I think you could be onto something. I was sitting there thinking just the whole concept, like you mentioned, issues with promotion and marketing of especially Black men and mental health, but then the recruitment of Black males into the field of mental health, you know, fully licensed, but then also maybe some lower level certified trainings in various high touch point industries that could serve as that medium between, or that go between, which could potentially lead people, maybe if they can't get a full therapist, but while you're here, you got somebody who at least knows what they're talking about. They're not feeding you BS, you know, like homeboy down the street, you know what I'm saying? And so, I think we need to talk a little bit more about that offline, because I think there might be something there, because again, when I talk to brothers and you throw it out there, there's excitement and openness, especially when I'm open about like, yo, this brother's been game changing for me to rethink, how I look at control and how I look at, expressing myself. I'm an expressive guy, but then I'm also guarded in some instances, especially like intimately on expressing myself on like what I feel and again, you've been a game changer for me in opening up there. When I share that with brothers, they're like, well, maybe it is all right for me to, talk to somebody. But then they go and research and they spend a little bit of time looking and like, well, dang, I can't get no appointment nowhere. Or this person don't take my insurance, or this one is this and this one is that. It's like, man, forget it. I just keep on business as usual.
Yeah, man. And that's a real challenge. It really is. I can't ignore it. Like for me, my practice is, self-pay. I don't deal with insurance, and a lot of people do, some don't. The reasons are varied. My books aren't always full. I think because of that reason. But still, man, it's a problem, and maybe we could talk more about it and do something about it. I just leave it at that.
Okay, well, no, it's good stuff, man. Again, this the wheels are turning, and we'll kind of go from there. And I know we got to end in a few minutes.
We got a few extra minutes because that interview
before we get to the end.
Canceled.
Oh, it did? Okay, so we got a couple extra minutes. All right, cool. And so with we talk about access, and we understand or recognize that there are some challenges when it comes to access to mental health. That being said, what are some things that brothers can do, maybe if they don't have access to a trained professional, to work on some of the issues that they have going on? Are there things that they can do, things they can read, are there apps or something that in lieu of, again, the best case scenario is to have a personal relationship with a trained therapist or counselor. But again, there are folks who access is an issue. What are some, I guess, stopgap solutions? And we're not talking about severe mental situations where you need to go and see somebody, but maybe, you're just dealing with a little something now. Are there any solutions out there that you're aware of that brothers can incorporate right now for themselves?
Yeah, man. So to answer that, I'll just kind of frame it this way. In my practice, I specialize in helping people deal with anxiety-related issues, mood-related issues, and social-related issues, right? Anxiety, mood, and social, and also identity issues. And so oftentimes I'm introducing my clients to apps. If anxiety is an issue for you, I'm going to teach you some ways to manage your anxiety in session, but I'll also introduce like apps like Headspace, which is a meditation app, or introduce like an app called Calm, which is another meditation app. And those apps help you practice the breathing techniques that you would be practicing with a therapist. And it doesn't mean you don't need to have a therapist, but it is, like you're saying, it's a good fill-in or adjunct to therapy is to have these types of apps. If you have an issue with attention deficit, there's apps that can help you keep things on the schedule more often. If you have an issue with pornography, there's apps that could block you from getting access to pornography. There's usually an app for that, you know what I'm saying? And so I use technology a lot in my sessions, especially if I feel like it's going to help, because it will help. I mean, if you look at your time on, your, what do you call it, your screen time, you've probably been online for a few hours every week. And if you're already on your phone that much, well, you can use your phone to actually help yourself, because the more time you spend on your phone is actually, getting your mind going, and it could be a problem for you. And so if that's an issue, then I would probably try to stay away from inviting you to get on an app if you already have like an issue where you're on your phone too much. I would teach you other natural things like going for a walk 20 to 30 minutes a day, every day. Just going out and being out in the sun, period. You know how many people don't even go outside? They spend no time outside, right? But that's actually therapeutic. Go for a walk in nature. Literally go to a nature park and go for a walk. That's therapeutic for you. So there's always something to do. I always tell my clients, the breakthroughs are not going to happen in I won't say not in the session, but the long-term change happens outside of counseling. We're
100%.
coming to counseling for practice. I'm going to teach you some things. It's like getting ready for the game. Life is a game. And you do the homework that I give you. You do the assignments that I'll say, hey, try this out for a week. Like, be very intentional about it. And then we'll come back and review how it went. Most times, if you do it, you're going to see the change. So now I'm going to say, keep doing that. And let's try to maybe add this. And then you'll just be on a path to living your best life. And so there's always tools to use. There's always apps that you can use just about for any problem that you have. I'm almost certain that there is an app. And this again is if you're not severely mentally ill.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm not saying if you have schizophrenia, there's an app that can help you with that. So if you're just dealing with anxiety, there's any number of apps that can help you with that.
You know, and it's interesting because you're talking about the tech solutions, but then you also threw in just like natural, you know, non-tech related solutions as well. And it's interesting, you know, I consume so much content, but that's so that I'm prepared to help those that I'm mentoring or coaching or whatnot, or even preparing for interviews like this. And it's interesting when I hear a lot of the health and wellness conversations for people who are in kind of the homeopathic space, there's a lot of conversation around sleep, right? There's a lot of conversation around sleep, but then there's also been a lot around nutrition and hydration and, you know, all of that. And when you stop and look at it, I want to know from your perspective, how much do various lifestyle habits like lack of sleep, poor nutrition, lack of hydration, dehydration, whatever, how do those things manifest into or exacerbate mental and emotional imbalances?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And I like to talk about this particular topic, especially as it relates to sleep and health. I mean, sleep and health, and sleep and diet and mental health, I should say. So we again, stigmas, things that we've been taught that you sleep when you die. If you sleeping, you know, you're losing, you're missing money or whatever. But you know what? You know, the more you miss out on sleep, the more you increasing your likelihood to have not only mental health issues, but physical health issues. So not sleeping is robbing yourself of the basic thing that you can give your body to replenish and restore and re-strengthen your entire body.
Yes.
Because your body uses that sleep, the time that you're sleeping, that's when your body is getting ready for the next day. It's like, you know, if you're a NASCAR driver and you never stop and do a pit stop, and you're trying to do the Indy or the 500, the Daytona 500, you're trying to go 500 something miles and never stopping, you're going to blow out before you get there. And if you don't sleep, you're like, oh, I'll just sleep an hour here or 2 hours there. No, you're going to blow out. You're going to blow out your engine.
That's real.
You're going to blow a gasket, something, and you're not going to be prepared for it. And I'll just say it, leave it at the most basic way of saying it. Sleep is critical to mental health. Sleep is critical to your overall health. And the more you are believing that you don't need to sleep, you'll sleep when you die, you're going to die sooner.
The more you believe you'll sleep when you die, you're going to die sooner. Like, and to me, that's a mic drop bar, and it's legit. Like, I was listening. Dude, I was listening to a wellness podcast, and the brother said that sleep is as important to your health as what you eat and so your nutrition and your exercise by like a magnitude of 10. Like he said, sleep. He said sleep is that important.
But we've been tricked in believing that it's not.
Wow.
We've been tricked to believe that. People are like, oh man, look. And the thing about sleep, the thing that you want to do is to get your body on the rhythm. And it's not that easy to do. But at least try. Like for me, I'm trying to be in bed, sleep every night by at least 10. And I'm getting up at the same time, like 5. And that's really only giving me 7 hours of sleep. But that's my body's rhythm. And you need, you know, the sweet spot. There's so much research on how much sleep you need. It was like 7 to 9 hours for an adult.
Everybody's different.
Right. But you need to be sleeping a decent amount of time. And if you can get your body on a rhythm to go to sleep and wake up at the same time every day, you'll realize benefits that you never knew. Because there's days where I'm up at like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm up all day, like working out, having clients, hell, any number of things. I have 2 children at home with me right now, and I'm not getting back into bed until 10 at night. So that's all day long. How do you have that energy to do that? It's because your body is prepared for the way you feed your body, the way you rest your body, the way you replenish your body will show up for you when you need it. And that's what I'm saying, man. If we're not sleeping, brothers, we have to stop thinking that we'll sleep when we die. Sleep is a cousin of death. All that stuff that's nonsense, man. Go to sleep. Get rest. Life is stressful. Go to sleep. And then actually sleeping, it regulates your breathing, so it's kind of calming you down. It's activating your body's relaxation response. So many things are happening. It's not that you're just laying there sleeping. Your body is actually doing what your body needs to do to give you life.
Dude, fellas, ladies listening too, if y'all ain't getting nothing from what he said there, you wasn't listening. You need to replay what he just said. Literally, if you believe that you're going to sleep when you die, you're going to lead yourself to dying pretty doggone soon, because sleep is necessity. Sleep is a necessity. It's required. That's when your body restores itself, when it recovers. But we're talking mental health here as well. So we jumped into physical, but it's also mental health. This stuff is intertwined. Poor sleep habits can have a negative or adverse effect on your mental health as well. And so we talked about access. If you're having issues with access and you really can't get to a therapist, you know, there are apps, there are programs, there are group sessions, there are all kind of things out there. But then you can also look at what you're eating. Take a look at, you know, what do your sleep habits look like? I mean, adjust the things that you have control over right now, right? Take control of what you can control right now. You might find that does help. And so when you take that and add it to, you know, a relationship with a licensed therapist or counselor, you're talking about going from good to great. And that's one thing I wanted to also dive into, is like, we always look, and we've been wired culturally to only seek help when there's an issue, right? So if it ain't broke, and it's basically the mindset of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? No, I don't need to touch it. It's flowing. Don't touch it. But I think, and this is just how I approach life from an abundance perspective, is I'm not looking to just set it and forget it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. How do I go from good to great? How can I take it from here to there? How can I become the best version of who I'm supposed to be? How can we take this great relationship and make it all time? How do we do that? And my thing is, even reaching out to you, it was not per se, not necessarily for like some imminent issue that I was facing. I even explained to you in our first session, it's like, yeah, I mean, I ain't perfect. I got some issues, right? We all do. But my main reason was, dude, I want to go from good to great. And I want to have a relationship that helps to fine tune what I got going on. How do we also get into the mind frame of looking at therapy and counseling as an enhancer, not just a problem fixer?
Yeah, man, it's just, again, it's one of those things where I believe that people do what seems to be cool, like understanding the psychology of people. People do what other people are doing. And so if you're saying, you know, and you're right, you're a great example of, you know, life wasn't in shambles when we met, but there have been some things that have helped you sharpen what you do, right? And so the more you tell people, hey, my life wasn't in shambles, I just decided, hey, I want to go and see what it's about, or see how I can get better. And just taking that step and showing, you're the social proof. You're the proof that, hey, you can go to counseling without having to have like major depression, you know, and still get something from it. And so you have to share that. I really believe that we as a culture, we keep talking about it and stop saying, well, people say, well, we don't talk about mental health. If someone is interviewing me and they say, how come we don't talk about mental health? I just stop them and say, hey, I talk about it every day. I have a podcast where we're talking about it. We're dropping shows every week. We're not the only show. We are talking about it. So let's go ahead and drop the stigma that we don't talk about it, because we are. Maybe not as many, maybe not as large, but we are definitely in this conversation. And you and me, because I have a counselor, even though I'm a counselor, we are the social proof. We are the proof. You know, you tell 10 people, or everybody, the thousands of people that you're connected to through your podcast and through all that, just tell them, hey, go check it out. just go check it out.
Mm-hmm. That's
They're
it.
going to go check it out. Somebody's going to go check it out. Just like you heard someone say you need a counselor, a mentor, and a coach. What did you do? You're one of the people who went and made sure you had that. And now you have the proof that it's useful, and now you share it with the next person. Each one, reach one, teach one. Ain't that what it goes?
Something like that. It's community and connection. Yeah. And I'll even say the interesting thing about community and connection, even how you and I connected, it was through another brother that I interviewed about 2 years ago. His brother named Aaron Muller, the black therapist out of New York. So he and I, we're good friends now. We back and forth texting. And I asked him, I was like, dude, I need me a therapist who's licensed in Tennessee. And he sent me your name. He was just like, I've been on a call or two with this brother. He seems pretty dope. You should check him out. I reached out, and that's how we connected again. It's not always what you know or who you know, it's who knows you, because then your community grows. Then you have network. That's when you start having conversations in spaces. People demystify the issues, but then you start to realize that there's some pathways. And if you start talking about it, I'm a firm believer that, you find what you seek, right? So if you're seeking it, right, and you continuously talk about it, like you keep mentioning, and you keep putting it out there, eventually you're going to come in contact with somebody who either is that or who is connected to that and can say, like, dude, holler at my boy. Real talk. Yeah. And that's what this thing is all about.
It's not like a magic thing. I don't have a big anything profound to say other than let's just keep the conversation going in our communities, in our homes, wherever we go. Let's talk about our psychological, emotional, and social well-being, because when we talk about mental health, those are the three aspects that we're helping you with: psychological, the social, and your emotional. Everybody can't help you with the social issues. I think that's where the relatability factor comes in. Most people know that when you go into the medical field, which mental health is a part of the medical field, clients connect better with people who look like them. Mm-hmm. That's not a secret. Everybody knows that. Yeah. Right? And that's for a reason. What I'm saying? That's for the social part of it. Now, so this is interesting. Like all last summer, we had the Black Lives Matter movement was real thick. Derek Chauvin, murdered, George Floyd, all that happened last year, right? And all these corporations were calling, not only me, but trying to put Black people in front of their staff to help them better understand what's going on in the culture. But while that was going on, and I oftentimes kind of told the people, like, yeah, we're talking about it. I'm talking to you about what's going on in the culture, but at the same time, I'm counseling men on the anxiety that we have, and I say we intentionally, that we have when we're out in the streets and we get stopped by the police or we encounter the police. Not everybody is the same. Not every Black man gets nervous when the police pull up behind them or, have this defensive posture. Not everybody does. But there are men who actually struggle socially or struggle with what's going on socially. Mm-hmm. You might be the only Black man working in your office and all this is going on. And you want to say this, but you don't want to seem like the angry Black man, or you don't want to even go there because you're the only Black man. So you're suppressing how you feel, repressing how you feel. Any number of things. So that's how that the person that is helping you, looking like you, is important, because there's a social aspect of it that we can already relate to. Now, not all skin folk is your kin folk.
There it is. That's real talk.
It is. But, and I say that because I once had a Black male counselor, and it just was not working for me. It wasn't working for me, man. It just, we didn't click. And that happens.
Check this out. And I think that's a really awesome thing to kind of to highlight, is when it's not working for you, it's okay to change. See.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's, when we think about various segments of society, we're like, okay, if your barber stops working for you, you like, man, you go to another barber. Or if this restaurant that you go to all of a sudden starts serving bad food, you go to another one. You don't think anything of it. You just find another solution. In the space of like healthcare, you have an experience that's not overly favorable. You automatically feel like, oh, I guess therapy sucks. Ain't no point in me going to therapy. It's like, no. You got to give the same grace that you give in other segments of your life in regards to therapy. And I love you saying that you had a therapist that was a black male at the time that just didn't work for you, you had to find another one.
I did. I had to, and that's what you should do. And there's no love. It's not personal or anything. The therapist is not gonna be mad.
No.
It happens.
They're a service provider, but the thing is, a lot of times we don't say that I need to find another one. We just say, throw therapy.
Right, give it up altogether.
So I'm
just
glad you said
house away. Throw the baby and everything away, just because just throw it all away. No, you go find another counselor. You find another one. You don't miss out on the benefits of having a therapeutic relationship in your life with a professional. You go find one that fits. And guess what? You might be a black man that might not want to have a black male counselor. Me, my counselor is a black woman right now. I've had a white woman that didn't work out, a white guy, it just totally didn't work out. I've had a black man, it just did not work out. But I ended up with a black woman as my counselor, and it's working out. And so, you might be, like I said, you might be a black person and not want to have a black counselor, and that's okay, because they can still help you if they're culturally competent. And if they're not, you find another counselor. That's just the way it goes.
Cultural competency. And cultural competency does not simply mean racial connection. Cultural competency means, I'm getting tongue-tied. Cultural competency just means that they have competency in which they are aligned with you in some capacity that you can relate to, connect with, and it gives value to you in that particular relationship. So, fellas, be mindful of that. Again, all skin folk ain't your kinfolk, but we do see the value prop of having the social proof of something or someone that you can relate with. So as we kind of wrap this thing up towards the end, I want to ask you one more thing before we get your contact information and information about your show, your book, podcast, all that kind of stuff. This journey that you're on as Eric the counselor, how has this come full circle to impact you as a black father and a husband?
You have to, I guess the immediate response would be is I have to literally live out what I talk about the most. I have to live out the things that I encourage other people to do. I have to be the first example of all of that for my home, for my wife, and for my children, even though they don't know what I'm doing every day. They don't know what I'm telling people. I know. It's about personal integrity. I can't be out here telling people or encouraging people to live this way and giving them the tools to do it, and I'm not doing it at all for me. And so the way that this thing has come full circle for me is because it really if I look at my life as a circle, the center of it, I'm at the center of it. That means I'm touching all points all the way around. And I think me being Eric the counselor, this is a brand, but the person behind that touches the circle at all points. And I'm just living true to I just have to be true to myself. I think it gives me a great sense of pride to be somebody's counselor. Having a counselor is a major thing. It's like having a pastor. Like, I respect my clients that way. I don't want y'all to see me on the news for, domestic violence. I'm not that, I don't have that problem, but I don't want to be on the news for beating up my wife. And I'm a counselor. I don't want to be, on the news for a DUI after DUI, because I help people in that way. And so I have hundreds of mentees. I have hundreds of clients. You know what I'm saying? And they're on that circle. And me being at the center, I have to touch all of that. I think that's how it brings it full circle for me, because I have to live the life that I want my clients' lives to be what's best for them, not anything like my life. You don't have to have anything, do any of the things I do. I want you to be successful at you. And the way that I can do that is to be the best me. I think that's how all this is really coming into full circle. And it really truly is my purpose, mission. I'm a helper. I'm a helper. You call it counseling, you call it mentoring, you call it whatever. But if I didn't have to have those titles, it would be a helper. I'm a helper and I'm a teacher. And so I use those skills And that's how I help people. And I really think that's how this whole thing is full circle. No one's ever asked me that question.
Mm-hmm.
But to think about it, it does bring me back to that place that I have to live a life worthy of being somebody's counselor.
Mm.
I think I would say that, and I have to make sure that I'm doing it for my family. Like my wife, it's kind of I don't counsel my wife and none of that stuff. You know, people
Mm-hmm.
think, you trying to counsel me? I don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I do try to do things or give things to help her
Mm-hmm.
and even my kids, just helping understand kids psychologically and just understand. I do that, but I'm not a counselor at my house. Like
Mm.
I'm not
Mm.
a counselor at my house. I'm a husband and I'm a daddy, and that's it. And ain't nobody trying to get me. No one's coming to me for counseling at all. My wife will come to me and want to talk because she know I'll listen. Um, but I'm not a counselor at home.
Ooh.
I'm just Eric.
Ooh. I'm not a counselor at home. I'm just Eric. That's real. You are
But yeah,
but you are a
yeah,
living testament of the practices or the things that you put out there. It's like you take your own
yeah.
medicine. Like that's something I think and by being in the position that you're in, it's such an awesome thing because it creates this, this level of accountability that you have to basically your actions have to match. Right. I mean, I've referenced it numerous times on various interviews that I've done, but it's Live Your Creed by Langston Hughes, and the first stanza is, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. Then the last stanza of Live Your Creed states, for I may misunderstand you and the fine advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding how you act and how you live. And so
There you go.
when you look at it, it's all about your actions, your words mapping to each other. And you being Eric, the counselor professionally at home, you just husband Eric and your daddy.
Daddy.
And that's what it is.
I'm
I love
daddy like a million times it does. Like if there's anything I hear, and any father knows this, if you around your kids, you're gonna hear daddy more than you hear anything in a day.
daddy, 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 man, dude, daddy, 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 daddy. And it's funny because when they're young, my wife and I would go back and forth. We'll say mommy and daddy back and forth to each other to encourage the
Yeah.
kids to this when they were young, and now it's a habit. So to your point, yeah, it's daddy coming in all forms from wife talking to me to the kids talking to
No,
me. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
it's a
Yes,
trip,
sir.
man. But I love it. Wouldn't have it no other way. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Well, dude, as we kind of finish this thing up, man, lay out all your contact information. How can the brothers, the sisters listen? How can they check you out, listen to your podcast, grab your book? If they're in the state of Tennessee and you got openings and all of that stuff, how can they reach out for consultations and all of that stuff? Just throw everything out there, man. Just promo yourself.
Yeah, the first place, of course, if you need any service, if you like to, to have a professional relationship with me, excuse me, you can go to ericthecounselor.com and just check out the site. Check out the information that's there. If you have any questions, feel free to call. I have an assistant. She'll answer any questions that you might have. If you want to talk to me, we could probably arrange for that. I don't really have a lot of time. I can't talk to everybody. But if you have questions, you can also contact me on the site. But just go to the site, check out the services that I do provide, and I provide services for people who are not in the state of Tennessee. It's not counseling. It's not. It's coaching more so than anything. I have clients all around the world, but I still use that therapeutic skill that I have to help people. But it's definitely not counseling. And so, if you're in another state and you want to work with someone, just check out my site, ericthecounselor.com. When I'm on social media, I hang out mostly on Instagram. I just like that one the best. And you can find me at Eric the Counselor on Instagram. Our podcast. So I have my company I have Eric the Counselor, and then I have Experience Mental Health, which is a company that's all about creating content, culturally relevant content and events for our audience. And so you can find us at EMH Now on Instagram. Check us out there. We put all of our content on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search for Experience Mental Health, you will find all the content that we release right there on our channel, mostly our podcast. And we do these live events specifically for Black men. So you can check all that stuff out there. And that's really where I'm at, man. From those touch points, you can get in touch with me from one of those touch points.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'll make sure to have that in the show notes. So fellas, ladies listening to, y'all make sure to visit ericthecounselor.com. On IG, you can check him out at Eric the Counselor. You can also check EMH Now on IG or Experience Mental Health on YouTube. So I have that stuff in the show notes so y'all can reach out to Eric the Counselor and make sure you let him know that if you don't already know him, that you heard about him on Black Fathers Now, and, you know, just connect with the brother. As you can tell, he's got a lot of good stuff going on, and his heart is really wrapped around helping Black males navigate, you know, successfully through life's challenges. And so the brother's doing it. We say we ain't got nobody out there. He's a testament that we do have folks out there. And man, I thank you for taking time and chatting with us, brother.
It's my pleasure. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this with you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we'll definitely have to probably do a round 2 at some point. And I got to schedule me another session at some point as well, so we can keep this ball rolling and I can keep myself.
Take your time, man. When you're ready.
Oh, I know. Look at here. I know this. I know this man. And so
I know. I got you.
But I appreciate you though, brother. Thank you so much, man. And so fellas, ladies listening to, make sure to visit ericthecounselor.com. Check Eric the Counselor on IG. Again, I'll have his information in the show notes. Hit subscribe. Check out his podcast and Experience Mental Health. And as always, make sure to follow Black Fathers Now on all social media platforms. Subscribe to the podcast if you're not already subscribed. If you're watching this thing on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe button. Give Eric a shout out. And, you know, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.